in our last session, we talked about the house of God described in the book of Revelation, chapter 21 and 22. And we saw that within this city of God that God is building, at the center of this city is the Lamb slain, standing. That means Jesus Christ, crucified and risen, is at the center of the city God is building through him. A city with people from every tribe and language and nation on earth being brought together within that city. So that's the center, Jesus Christ crucified and risen, when we think of the church. Now within Islam, this city of God, this city of Islam, this region of Islam that the Muslims are building, at the center of it is the Kaaba. Is a black stone within the Kaaba. The Kaaba is the temple. And the very center of that temple is the black stone. And so I have here two circles. The one circle representing the black stone, and the other circle representing Jesus Christ crucified and risen. So at the heart of the Christian church is Jesus crucified and risen, and in the soul of the Muslim Ummah, the Muslim community, is this black stone towards which all Muslims bow in prayer. Now that black stone represents something. It represents the Quran that came down. You remember we said how that this Quran was sent down, Muslims believe, during the month of Ramadan. When Muhammad was out on the mountain, praying and meditating, and this is the message that this angel brought to Muhammad. Proclaim, the Muslims believe this, proclaim in the name of thy Lord and Cherisher who created man out of a mere clot of mud. Proclaim. That's the message that came down from above. And so our Muslim friends think of the center of this house, the Dar al-Islam, being a sent down revelation in the form of the Quran, a book from heaven, represented by that black stone. Within the Christian movement, the center of the church is Jesus Christ crucified and risen, and the presence of the Holy Spirit bringing life and transformation within our lives. Two communities with two different centers. Now I want to, from those two different centers, then this House of Islam is built. So from the Islamic center, the House of Islam is built. So I want to turn now to this House of Islam and look at its construction. Muslims refer to 5 pillars of belief and 5 pillars of duty. So let's take a look at these pillars of belief and duty. You will notice, we'll look at the duty pillars first of all. The first duty within this House of Islam, the first duty is the confession of faith. La ilaha Muhammadan Rasulullah. There's no God but Allah, and Muhammad is the prophet of Allah. That confession, when given in sincerity, means, and intention, means that you have become a Muslim. I just said the confession right now, but I did not say it with intention, so I'm not a Muslim. But if I were to say that confession with intention, then that would mean that I have become a Muslim. That's the confession of faith, which is at the heart of the Muslim faith commitment. The second pillar of duty is prayer. Prayer 5 times a day, facing Mecca and that black stone, which, as I said, Muslims believe came from heaven as a sign of the Quran that they believe he has sent down. And so they bow towards that black stone 5 times a day, and as they pray towards that black stone, they recite the Fatiha, which is the opening surah of the Quran. Listen, please. Listen to the Fatiha. Most merciful, praise be to God, the cherisher and sustainer of the worlds, most gracious, most merciful, master of the day of judgment. Thee do we worship, and thine aid we seek. Show us the straight way, the way of those on whom thou hast bestowed thy grace, those whose portion is not wrath, and who go not astray. That's the opening prayer of the Quran, recited 5 different times every day by Muslims. That's mandatory. They can say it more often if they want to, but they must say it 5 different times a day. But in each of those 5 times a day that they pray, they recite this surah, this Fatiha, several times, which means that at the end of the day, they have repeated this Fatiha 17 times. 17 times every day it's recited. It's recited at 5 different times, but each time there's more than one time required to recite this prayer. And they pray it with their faces, they pray it in a kneeling posture, showing a submission, a submissive spirit to what this prayer is about. It's interesting, in the center of this prayer is this prayer, show us the straight way, show us the straight way. I was speaking with a pastor in Indonesia several years ago, a young man who's a pastor of a large church in Indonesia. And I said to him, tell me your story. Well, he said he used to be a Muslim. In fact, he was the imam in a mosque. He led out in the prayers in the mosque. And then one day it occurred to him that every day, 17 times, he is praying, Lord, show us the straight way, the way of those in whom you have bestowed your grace. He said, well, I wonder what this straight way is that I'm praying that God will reveal to me. And as he was thinking about that, he somehow acquired a New Testament, the book of John, and he got to John 14, where Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Oh, he said, when I pray, show us the straight way, I'm praying that God will reveal Jesus to me, for he is the straight way. And he said that was my turn point where I decided to become a Christian, because I saw in Jesus a fulfillment of this prayer that we prayed as Muslims so faithfully over the years, that God would show us the straight way, show us the straight way. Yeah. And so it takes about an hour a day to say these prayers. Till you do the ablutions, you must do ablutions before you say them, and then recite this prayer and other prayers as well. They recite as they bow with their faces to the floor, in obedience and in submission to what they believe is God's will. Most merciful, praise be to God, the cherisher and sustainer of the worlds. So prayer is the second pillar of duty that all Muslims must participate in. The third pillar of duty is giving of alms to the poor. Generosity. I know when I lived in a Muslim society, I often felt rebuked in my spirit as I saw how generous many of my Muslim companions were to the poor and to the dispossessed. My wife and I, we would get a little cup and we would fill it with money, put money in it at the beginning of the month, and then as people would come asking for help, we would give money out of that cup. And when the cup was empty, we would then say it's now empty. But I often felt that was a little bit stingy. We should have continued to give from that cup throughout the week, as our Muslim friends did so generously. So generous giving to the poor is very important. And then the pilgrimage, the annual pilgrimage to Mecca. If possible, everyone is to go to Mecca one time in their lifetime. And so that's the fourth pillar. And then the final pillar is fasting during the month of Ramadan, to lay aside food, fast. That helps us get in touch with the poor. Fasting is also a reminder that revelation began, Muslims believe that revelation began to come down from heaven during the month of Ramadan. And so fasting in Ramadan reminds us that revelation of God requires self-discipline and self-control. At night then they feast. And so revelation also means feasting, celebration. So both sides of it are there within the fasting. Fasting in the daytime, feasting in the nighttime. Celebration and self-discipline. Both those are dimensions of the gift of God through his revelation to us, Muslims believe. So those are the pillars of duty. Then we come to the pillars of belief, what every Muslim must believe. And first, he must believe in God. And Muslims believe that Adam was created in paradise. And then Adam made a mistake And so God sent Adam down to earth for a period of testing. That's why we are on earth, for this period of testing. And so God, in his mercy, sent Islam down to Adam to instruct him on what he should believe and what he should do. That's the basic understanding. But the starting point is God. God created us, but when Adam disobeyed God, God then sent him to earth. And so the purpose of being on earth is for us to submit to Islam, which is God's instruction on what we should believe and what we should do. That's what Muslims believe. So the first pillar of duty, of belief, is to believe in God. Now, Muslims believe not only that God sent Islam down to Adam, but they believe that this Islam that God sent down is inscribed on a guarded tablet in heaven. And it is co-eternal with God. Many Muslim theologians believe that, not all, they debate that. But this guarded tablet in heaven is Islam, which God sent down to Adam, but not in the form of a book. He sent it down in the form of instruction to Adam, but not in the form of a book. But this Islam, as I say, is on this guarded tablet. In due course, God decided to send a portion of this guarded tablet down in the form of a book. The first book that we have is called the Torah. And that is sent down through the prophet Moses. Through the angel Gabriel. It's Gabriel that brings it down. That's the basic understanding. So later on, God decided to send another portion down, and so he sends down the Psalms. He sends down the Psalms through the prophet David. So later on, God decides to send more Islam down for further instruction and clarification. And so he sends the additional Islam, the additional portion of Islam, down through the prophet Jesus, the Messiah. And this portion that he sends down is called the Gospel, or the Injil. That's the Arabic term. The Arabic term for Psalms is Zabur. And then later on, God sent another portion down, and this is the Quran, through the prophet Moses. And these books that come down through the auspices, through the ministry of the angel Gabriel. That's how Muslims would understand it. And so on the board here, I have listed a number of the pillars of belief. First of all, you must believe in God. And then I note, you must believe in the prophets of God. And notice on the board here, I have several prophets that I've written down. Moses, Jesus, David, Moses. I said Moses, I'm sorry. This is not Moses, it's Muhammad. Muhammad. So I put a number of prophets that Muslims believe in, but there's many more than these prophets I put on the board. They say there are at least 24,000 prophets. Recently I was with some Muslims, they said there's 50,000. There's a lot of prophets. And And Muslims will say, we believe in all those prophets, including the biblical prophets. And several biblical prophets are here, like Moses and David. Jesus is referred to as the Messiah in Islam. They believe he also received a book from heaven. And so you have these sent down revelations. And so that's another one of the pillars of belief. You must believe in the holy books. You must believe in angels, because it's to Gabriel, the angel Gabriel, that these books are brought down. In this diagram, you don't see God actually meeting us, but you see him bringing these books down to us through the angel Gabriel. And then, of course, you must believe in the final judgment, which is the fifth pillar of duty, belief in the final judgment. So those are the pillars of belief: final judgment, angels, holy books, prophets, and God himself.
We invite you to participate in the International Bible Teaching and Gospel Sharing Project. Whether these Christian expanded educational opportunities will become available to people around the world depends on all of us. We very much need and appreciate your prayer and financial support. For more information, please visit tvsseminary.com.
Now, who possesses these books, like the Torah? Where is the Torah to be found? Or where is the Psalms to be found, the Zabur? Muslims are supposed to believe that these books came from God, but most Muslims don't have them. They're found in the Bible, you see. And so in the Quran, there's this very specific recognition of books that they say were revealed by God, which are found in the Bible. And very interestingly, the Quran says to Muslims, to Christians, make your scriptures freely available. What do they mean by make your scriptures freely available? They mean the Torah, the Psalms, and the Gospel. In fact, they mean the whole Bible, because the Quran also refers to the whole Bible as being God's Word, which God has entrusted to the Christians. And the Quran says to Christians, stand upon your scriptures. If you don't stand upon your scriptures, why, you have no place to stand upon. And so the Quran urges Christians to make their scriptures available. Now, very sadly, I must say, very sadly, there's an idea among many Muslims that the Bible has been corrupted and changed and is untrustworthy. And so sometimes there's a hesitancy by Muslims to receive the Bible because they think it might deceive them and take them away from the truth because it's been changed and it's been corrupted. And a very simple answer to that concern, when Muslims may raise that concern with us, is simply to say, we all know God would not permit that to happen. In fact, both the Bible and the Quran say God will never permit his word to be changed. And so we know that the Quran has commanded us to stand upon our scriptures. We most certainly do that. We believe that the Bible is God's word. We stand upon that word. And so let's lay aside this idea that it's been changed and corrupted. We all know that can't happen. God wouldn't permit that to happen. So let's talk about the message of these scriptures. And so we urge our Muslim friends to leave that notion rest, that the Bible has been changed and is corrupted. It really does present, that notion presents special challenges, and we urge our Muslim friends to leave that aside so we can talk about the real message of the Bible, as well as the message of the Quran that they might want to share with us. There's a very interesting command in the Quran which I rather enjoy. It's a command actually to Muhammad, which says that Muhammad, if he has any questions or doubts, should ask those that had the scriptures before him, and they will help him help resolve his questions. And I rather like that surah. I remind my Muslim friends of that sometimes. That I say, I stand upon these scriptures, I read them, and I'm ready to receive any questions you might have. I noticed that even Muhammad himself was encouraged to ask the Christians what their scriptures say. I'm very happy to share with you what our scriptures say with any questions you might have. So we try to work at the conversation, the dialogical conversation, in that way.